This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. The Evening Standard launched a campaign to get sports fans back in stadiums. Backed by England and Arsenal football legend Ian Wright, it comes as our investigation reveals London alone has lost close to £1 billion because the spending power of thousands of fans on football match days has vanished. Meanwhile, technology bosses tell us crowds of around 30% capacity could return safely with systems monitoring and controlling them. You can read more on that, including Ian Wright's own thoughts, in the newspaper or at standard.co.uk. With me now is football journalist Marc Webber from FC Business magazine and BBC's Final Score, with whom he's one of the very few people to actually be going to games inside those empty stadiums. Marc, without those crowds, is football still football?
No, it's pretty soulless, to be honest with you. I was reporting on Hull City in League One the other day at the KC Stadium in Hull. You'd normally get about 8,000 or 9,000 going to that game. It was empty. And because the press box is so high up in the stadium, literally you could not hear any sound or as little sound as possible from the playing surface compared to when there's a load of Hull fans in there and you know that fans are in there. And it just felt like I was watching a game in silence, like somebody was playing football in the library.
The thing is, though, Marc, this is costing football clubs money, isn't it? From the big ones all the way down to the bottom leagues. Some of them are in a pretty serious financial situation, aren't they?
Absolutely. Look, especially for Football League clubs, the 72 clubs that are in that league and the National League clubs just below them, where the ticket money is their bread and butter. It will probably count, when you're talking League One and League Two, for about 60 to 70% of their overall revenue. Complete reverse of the Premier League. Most of the money is TV money, of course, but at all levels, you cannot sustain football without fans, especially in the League One and League Two levels. The likes of Leyton Orient and Northampton are two clubs that I know I've spoken to about their finances, and they are doing the best that they can, but they know that if there's a continual loss of what would be millions of pounds of revenue into their bank accounts every month, they will need to look for some sort of financial support if this continues beyond Christmas to keep them going. I mean, there is the alternative that people can watch their streams on video and online video, of course, and pay for that. A lot of fans are doing that, but it is still not meeting the sort of ticket sales that you would normally get on a continual basis, and season ticket revenue guarantee, certainly.
Now, Marc, you're a football journalist, not a doctor, but would you feel safe going back to a football stadium of any size with huge crowds around you and not feel there's a risk of getting coronavirus here?
Absolutely. Two reasons for saying it. I was at the test event that they held before they suspended them at Norwich a couple of weeks ago, where they allowed 1,000 people into Carrow Road to watch that game. Everybody was socially distanced in their bubble. I watched the process go through about how people were handled, temperature checks for all spectators, staggered arrival times. And I saw nothing in that process which I felt would enhance the risk of me and those other people getting coronavirus. And to my knowledge, where there have been test events, there has been no evidence that has come out yet that has said, as a direct result of that person attending that football match, there has been X more cases of coronavirus in the community. And the other thing I'd point is, even at the lower end of football, of course, there are non-league teams like your Claptons and your Hampton and Richmond boroughs who are allowed people in to watch games. And some of them are knocking up towards 300, 400 attendance. And that process continues. And again, is that directly responsible? So I don't really point to my personal experience. I absolutely feel safe. And I think everybody in football has done their best to adhere to protocols. I point to real experience that is in and data that is in the hand of the government right now through test events and the ongoing attendances at non-league football.
And putting, the financial concerns aside, after all the entire country has been through with lockdown, not being able to see people, all those times, all those months over the summer we all spent in our houses, would it just be quite simply a nice thing for people to go to a football game again, a normal thing?
You can't underestimate the power of towards your mental health and towards you as a person of going to see a football match, being entertained, meeting up or seeing friends, even if you're at a social distance with them, and having that experience of the joy of a goal going in or the misery of it not going in. That is my biggest worry at the moment with the attitude that the government is taking towards not allowing fans in. Football hasn't been allowed to send fans back on a major scale in the Premier League and the football leagues for a while now, yet the number of coronavirus cases has gone up and down. So in other words, football's effect on those figures, from my view, is neutral. It's not causing it. It's not making it less. And I'm yet to see any convincing scientific evidence put in front of me that fans shouldn't be allowed into football grounds. People will say it's not about them when they're in the stadium. It's about the excess people that you're putting back into the community in pubs and the transport to and from games. My response to that is, okay, if that's the concern, those things can be regulated too. You can have staggered entry times into the games. You can close all the pubs around a football ground and block them off completely. So there's nothing that I have genuinely seen put forward by government scientific advisors or the government themselves that shows to me that football or rugby or any of those sort of spectator sports has, is a threat to the rise in coronavirus figures. And yet again, I sort of think it is a snobbery towards sport.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.